Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible. At first. But rather like this pocket watch, it's full of cracks. What? I believe Judge Shikoku feels the same way.
I do?
I do. I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year. Sorry? If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty just to spare the world of your ridiculous bombast. I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall into which you've stumbled. Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge he was there, I presume? Yes, I do. Very well then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st of October. Of course, as a man of the law, I have no intention of obstructing justice. Ha ha ha. Ha ha, good one. Me.
To myself.
To myself. I was talking to myself as I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an Ippon CA throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It had nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly killed having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London. Ippon Seoi? A common jujitsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. So Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you? What? The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there. Ah! I've no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell. Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord. But if this testimony holds, Judge Shikoku will be deemed to have no involvement in this case. Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination. Sorry, my lord. The defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that. You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten. In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo. There's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive. Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, Stripling. What? The inspector was killed on the steamship in France. How on earth could he have got back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain at that same spot. It's a devil of a thing. Well then, obviously the culprit must have moved the body. How? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think? Well, yes, that's true, but... Bro, this is so fucking easy. Remember, the witnesses remember seeing Gregson carrying a trunk it wasn't this tiny ass trunk. It was the trunk that we found Shikoku himself in.
Mm-hmm.
Question is why they thought he looked like Gregson when he looks so different, but whatever. We'll get that. We'll get to that point. All passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels, and I would like to think the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage. If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. There would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain. Let's kill that idea then. But perhaps not. Mrs. Otto? We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them, which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative. Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you? I thought I'd been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony with your consent, of course, my lord. Consent, indeed, is key. I have no objection. State your amended testimony now. Testicles. Testimony. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. But what if, and hear me out, a gun?
That in turn was a key.
Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks to the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages and organized by the ministry. And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel. Oh god, Gregson's corpse. So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? Yes? If I say yes, will we make you guilty? So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain. Unless, of course, they've developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B. Funny you should say that. Professor Harebrain's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruto. Right, of course. The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice. Yes, because there's really nothing more to say. So that's his story. Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you top a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say, Mr. Naruto must have been murdered there, do we? Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one? And the fact is that Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Shikoku's cabin, the body would have to have been moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border, that would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit. That could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruto. Well, we have evidence then, don't we? I thought we did.
I don't think we do at the moment. I think we still need a press. I mean, they may have been able to move the body in the 20-minute during the drill, you know, kill him and then move him, but...
No. I have a different thought, but I don't think we actually have the evidence that I thought we did.
Hold it!
Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean? Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced. The man accompanying him would have had two swords slung around his waist. You mean me? Who else? Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Certainly, all I can tell you is that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back in my cabin. And you entered without any inkling of suspicion. That's right. None whatsoever. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me.
Hold it!
By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose. That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction, but I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone would think the man had never shot somebody before. Believe it or not, most of us haven't. Anyway, there was no time to call for the help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it?
Ha 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 ha! My Ippon Seiyori is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you.
Doubt. But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it?
Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape.
The outstanding guard does it again.
Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippon Sie throw.
Hold it!
Preferable to the man's head being pulled off or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say?
Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place.
Absolutely not. All the watch proves is the power of my jujitsu throw.
Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall.
Ha 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 ha. What are you talking about? That's what the star of your lowbrow detective story has told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? No murder took place in my cabin.
Do we have ice cubes? Oh, he's got it right here. Dumbass.
Oh, the trunk.
I'm gonna save just in case, because that seems a little too obvious.
Except it did give us a stump. Didn't have to search for it. Oh, you already passed it.
I most certainly did not. There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say? I would say the opposite is true.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. What are you talking about, Rinosuke? As well as being a judge, Mr. Shikoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. We learned that when we first met you upon your arrival in London. Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say, I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you? I knew you were jealous. Ha 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 ha. I presume you recall this, Judge Shikoku. It's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside. Mr. Naruto, surely you're not suggesting... I'm afraid I am, yes. We were there. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Shikoku's trunk. Order, order, order in the court. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk. It could. Because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside his trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Shikoku? But inside his trunk? How horrifying! And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body. I don't have to listen to this nonsense. Dr. Gorey, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator. Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of the requisite size are few and far between. Yes, I'm sure they are. But one place they're certainly found is on large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages. And the SS Groose is no exception. Professor Mikotoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Shikoku? Thoughts? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. Nuts. Well, this is all very heartening. I can see that it was a wise move, letting Asogi and you embark on this study tour. What are you talking about now? Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already. Judge Shikoku, stop, please. Diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond? Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there? Why ever not? Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical. The actual scene of the crime. The prosecution stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Barrick Van Zeek shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, The defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning of the British are known for... That's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly? I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim. That's the only fairy tale here. How can you say that? Quite simply, because that claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession. Very tantalizing, Counsel. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you? Prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. It would be the trunk, right?
Take that!
No. Can we look at Gregson's autopsy report again?
I think it is the autopsy report.
Take that!
Would it be the pocket watch? Because...
Because they can just say, oh, it must have broken when I threw him. Like, what claim are we trying to dispute again?
Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. It would be the pocket watch, as we've established before.
Take that!
Nope.
I don't think it'll be that, because we already went through that. We already tried the trunk. Maybe it's something earlier that we got? on, can we look at the hair again? Wait, can we look at his picture again? Two of them? No, not that one. The murder picture. The way that he's curled up. I don't know.
Take that!
What? Yes, but the point... Oh my god. Okay. I'll take it.
Sorry, I only thought of that because of the trunk.
I'll take it. No, that does make sense. That line of reasoning it makes sense, yes. The point is the posture of the body itself. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. You could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Shikoku, but it's your logic that is flawed.
What?
According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up in that way. Though the answer should be abundantly clear by now.
You're suggesting...
The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out on the floor. From the inside of a large travel trunk. No. You're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space. Judge Shikoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood.
Dots. Present my trunk? I refuse.
What? On what grounds?
I don't wanna. I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan. I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations.
In other words, Judge Shikoku, there is blood in your trunk.
My dumpy has no blood. I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to...
Shut up! At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be, you will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the dumpy.
Order! Order in court. Well, Mr. Shikoku, what's it to be?
You can't be serious. You did it?
Dots. Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Asuki? What? Dots. Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my dumpy, exactly as postulated by the defense.
What?
You. Dear God. Outrageous.
So it was you! You admit to...
Nope. I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the man, I certainly have no recollection. What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean? I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else.
You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man?
How the fuck should I know?